All right, welcome. So we're going to be starting with the preface to the course. Did everyone get a chance to review it? And it's okay if you didn't. Yeah? Awesome. Okay, well, let's get started. It states that the preface was written in 1977 in response to many requests for a brief introduction to the Course, A Course in Miracles. The first two parts, how it came and what it is, Helen Schuckman wrote herself. The final part, what it says, was written by the process of an inner dictation described in the preface. So for those who don't know or are going to be listening to the recording, this is A Course in Miracles. It is essentially Jesus's true message that he wanted to share, uncorrupted, and that just moved through Helen. So this is A Course in Miracles. This was his true message. And as we go into this journey together, there's going to bring a lot of clarity, a lot of motivation to see things through the eyes of love and peace. And we get direct guidance as well as how to do so. All right, so I'm just going to start reading. If anyone has a question, just throw your hand up or something you want to add, no problem. And I'll be pausing here and there as well. How it came. A Course in Miracles began with the sudden decision of two people to join in a common goal. Their names were Helen Schuckman and William Thetford, professors of medical psychology at Columbia University's College of Physicians and Surgeons in New York City. It does not matter who they were, except that the story shows that with God, all things are possible. They were anything but spiritual. Their relationship with each other was difficult and often strained, and they were concerned with personal and professional acceptance and status. In general, they had considerable investment in the values of the world. Their lives were hardly in accord with anything that the Course advocates. Helen, the one who received the material, describes herself: psychologist, educator, conservative in theory, and aesthetic in belief. I was working in a prestigious and highly academic setting, and then something happened that triggered a chain of events I could never have predicted. The head of my department unexpectedly announced that he was tired of the angry and aggressive feelings our attitudes reflected, and concluded that there must be another way. As if on cue, I agreed to help him find it. Apparently, this course is the other way. So something I would like to highlight is if you get into A Course in Miracles, there are some people out there who try to, I think, just misunderstand Helen and William, who we call Bill. And I just want to kind of point out here that we're given very clearly what their backgrounds were, not religious, not concerned about anything that the Course presents. So the Course was essentially coming to people who were kind of fresh and new to this message, and were not in a place to corrupt it because they simply did not know what it was about. So just kind of want to highlight their importance. And also what I would like to highlight is that the plan for A Course in Miracles to come through, we have to trust that plan. It's not up to us to, discredit William and Helen, but simply to trust that the plan was set up for the Course to come through the way it did. So, we just have to trust in that plan. So continuing on, although their intention was serious of wanting a better way, they had great difficulty in starting out on their joint venture, but they had given the Holy Spirit, which we're taught in the Course is the voice for God, their little willingness, that as the Course itself was to emphasize again and again, is sufficient to enable him to use any situation for his purposes and provide it with his power. So this is something that's going to be reinforced as we go through the text, that it is our individual decision to want to rise above conflict, to be done with conflict and chaos in our life. That is the little willingness. And each of us come to that in our own way and through our own journeys. And so this just happened to be how it came to William and Helen, was that their work relationship was so contentious that they're like, that's it, we're done. There's got to be a better way. All right. And once we do offer that little willingness, that's where our higher self, the Holy Spirit, can start to move through us, and we can start to really move beyond that conflict. Okay, Helen continues. 3 startling months preceded the actual writing. during which time Bill suggested that I write down the highly symbolic dreams and descriptions of the strange images that were coming to me. Although I had grown more accustomed to the unexpected by that time, I was still very surprised when I wrote, "This is A Course in Miracles." That was my introduction to the voice. It made no sound, but seemed to be giving me a kind of rapid inner dictation, which I took down in a shorthand notebook. The writing was never automatic. It could be interrupted at any time and later picked up again. It made me very uncomfortable, but it never seriously occurred to me to stop. It seemed to be a special assignment I had somehow, somewhere agreed to complete. It represented a truly collaborative venture between Bill and myself, and much of its significance, I am sure, lies in that. I would take down what the voice said and read it to him the next day, and he typed it from my dictation. I expect he had him, as in Bill, I expect he had his special assignment too. Without his encouragement and support, I would never have been able to fulfill mine. The whole process took about 7 years. The text came first, then the workbook for students, and finally the manual for teachers. Only a few minor changes have been made. Chapter titles and subheadings have been inserted in the text, and some of the more personal references that occurred at the beginning have been omitted. Otherwise, the material is substantially unchanged. The names of the collaborators in the recording of the course do not appear on the cover because the course can and should stand on its own. It is not intended to become the basis for another cult. Its only purpose is to provide a way in which some people will be able to find their own internal teacher. And that internal teacher is what we call the Holy Spirit. We can also refer to it as our higher self. And we're going to get more guidance on who that is as we move along. Okay, I'm just going to continue on. All right, what it is. As its title implies, the course is arranged throughout as a teaching device. It consists of 3 books, the text, the workbook for students, and the manual for teachers. The order in which students choose to use the books and the ways in which they study them depend on their particular needs and preferences. So I think it's very important that you follow your inner guidance. What's standing out for you the most? It is important that you have, like before you approach the workbook lessons, that you have an understanding of what the text is saying and teaching, so you have an understanding. So I do suggest that you do read the text and gain some sort of understanding. But it is important to follow your heart and follow that inner guidance, because although it is one message, we all kind of approach it a little differently. Everyone's journey looks very different from another person's. So just honor your inner process. The curriculum of the course purposes is carefully conceived and is explained step by step at both the theoretical and practical levels. And this is part I want to highlight. It emphasizes application rather than theory, and experience rather than theology. So it is going to be through particularly the course lessons and beautiful italicized parts throughout the text that we start to use that guidance and apply it when we feel ourselves ego reacting, getting upset in any way, that we start to apply these teachings, that we're actually going to start getting some traction on our healing path. If we're just reading, that's fine to read and absorb, but at some point you're going to have to apply, right? It specifically states that a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. And although Christian in statement, the course deals with universal spiritual themes. It emphasizes that it is but one version of the universal curriculum. There are many others, this one differing from them only in form. They all lead to God in the end. And so what I want to highlight is that one of the teachings in the course is that if the course comes into your life and you feel attracted to it, then it's your way home. It's your way to the full remembrance of God and enlightenment. So I always encourage people to trust that nudge. It may not always be something that you want to do, but trust that if you're attracted to it to any degree, there is something there for you. Okay. The text is largely theoretical and sets forth the concepts on which the course's thought system is based. Its ideas contain the foundation for the workbook's lessons. So we have the text that explains the theory, and we have the workbook which helps us apply. Okay. Without the practical application the workbook provides, the text would remain largely a series of abstractions which would hardly suffice to bring about the thought reversal at which the course aims. And we're going to be talking a bit about the thought reversal, so if that's a bit much, the clarity will come. The workbook includes 365 lessons, one for each day of the year. It is not necessary, however, to do the lessons at that tempo, and one might want to remain with a particularly appealing lesson for more than one day. There are a few lessons myself where I like to linger on them for a week. I think it just feels so good. And there are some that you might just struggle with, and you're like, this one requires a little more time. Right? But as it says, there's only a bit of guidance here. The instructions urge only that not more than one lesson a day should be attempted. At least just give one lesson a full day. The practical nature of the workbook is underscored by the introduction to its lessons, which emphasizes experience through application rather than a prior commitment to a spiritual goal. So again, we have that emphasis on application. And here it says, some of the ideas the workbook presents you will find hard to believe, and others may seem to be quite startling. This does not matter. You are merely asked to apply the ideas as you are directed to do. You are not asked to judge them at all. You are asked only to use them. It is their use that will give them meaning to you and will show you that they are true. Remember only this, you need not believe the ideas, you need not accept them, and you need not even welcome them. Some of them you may actively resist. None of this will matter or decrease their efficacy. But do not allow yourself to make exceptions in applying the ideas the workbook contains. And whatever your reactions to the ideas may be, use them. Nothing more than that is required. So it is highlighted by several teachers of A Course in Miracles, especially Kenneth Wapnick, the great teacher who's now passed, is that A Course in Miracles is really speaking to your unconscious mind, that deep level where the truth resides, right? So this is why when you're doing some of the course lessons and you're like, what does this mean? There's a part of you in your unconscious that is waking up, that recognizes the words, recognizes the meaning behind the words. So you're just asked to simply go, okay, you know what? I'll use myself as an example. I, Fiona, think I'm in this room with my two dogs talking to these beautiful women. And I only have this small understanding and this limited scope. But behind that, there's my unconscious mind. Beneath that, there's a whole world of thoughts and information. And that includes the truth. So I'm asked to just go, you know what? Do what you're asked, follow the lessons, follow the guideline, and then just let whatever's going on at the level of my unconscious, all that content I'm not aware of, just let my higher self, who is there at the level of my unconscious, do its work, right? That's so we just have to have kind of like respect that we only know so much through our limited perspectives at this point. So we're just really inviting something larger and bigger to awaken us deep in our minds. Okay, and then finally, the Manual for Teachers, which is just awesome. I love the Manual for Teachers, which is written in question and answer form, provides answers to some of the more likely questions a student might ask. It also includes a clarification of a number of the terms the course uses, explaining them within the theoretical framework of the text. The course makes no claim to finality, nor are the workbook lessons intended to bring the student's learning to completion. At the end, the reader is left in the hands of his or her own internal teacher. So again, you are being led to, essentially you're being introduced to this part of your mind that you forgot, your higher self, that connection to source, to love. And so we're, through the course's lessons, we're being reminded that there is a better way. And there's someone with us, our higher self, who, as we're taught in the course, is literally a part of us, right? Is there. So this is like, it's like a beautiful, elaborate introduction. Our internal teacher who will direct all subsequent learning as he sees fit. And he is just used for ease Holy Spirit has no gender. It doesn't matter. Just that's just term used to just help things flow. While the course is comprehensive in scope, truth cannot be limited to any finite form and is clearly recognized in the statement at the end of the workbook. This course is a beginning, not an end. No more specific lessons are assigned, for there is no more need of them. Henceforth, hear but the voice for God, who is your internal teacher. He will direct your efforts, telling you exactly what to do, how to direct your mind, and when to come to him in silence, asking for his sure direction and his certain word. So the beautiful thing about A Course in Miracles, I find, is that you learn that you're not alone. I think a lot of the fear that we experience in this world is, I'm just like doing this all on my own. Like, what do? I don't know everything, like, and we can really freak ourselves out and go deeper into the ego's thought system of fear. Where here we are going, hey, there's someone with you. And so we are asked to simply be open, to open up and ask for help, right? And so we're going to be very guided very clearly on how to do that. It's going to come up lots as we go through the text. And then doing the workbook lessons is your opportunity to wake that up and choose. So it's just really comforting to know, wow, I'm not alone. There's something greater. And I think that's the beauty of A Course. And what I also want to point out is that the more you apply it, actually, the more you understand it. So, you're just going to understand it more the more you apply it. Because the more you apply it, the more you're waking up that higher self. And so essentially, you kind of want to just think of it this way, that the ego mind is kind of at the forefront of your mind right now. It's a habit. It seems more dominant. And through our work with the Course, we're kind of bringing the Holy Spirit to the forefront of our mind. So it becomes our dominant choice and the more sane choice. And so we just start to hear the Holy Spirit more as we start to lessen our reliance on the ego, and we start to forgive and start to release. And the ego is undone in your mind, and the Holy Spirit comes more to the forefront. So this is our work with the Course, and it's beautiful, and it's not small, it's massive, right? Like, a lot of you are familiar with my own journey in the past 12 years. Actually, I wanted to note this. Happy 10 years to me being healed from Meniere's disease using the true forgiveness work of A Course in Miracles. Yay. A supposedly incurable disease. I used the true forgiveness process on it for 2 months and healing occurred. What actually healed? The ego content beneath the Meniere's disease that showed up as Meniere's disease, but it was 10 years ago this month, in and around this day, that it happened. And since then, I went through PTSD and a very challenging relationship with my mom, and I applied the same true forgiveness to both those challenges. And now I know peace, genuine peace. So healing is natural. It's one of the great promises of A Course in Miracles is that miracles are natural. And the result of miracles is healing, right? So healing is natural. So I love that we're gathering. We can keep ourselves, each other accountable to this goal of healing. But I'm here to say to you that it works. It works. And you're worth committing to it. Whatever your journey will look like, there's ego content beneath your challenges that can heal. So I'm a walking testament.
That's the inspiration we're coming after, at least I am.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope so, because, we're here for each other. And I genuinely hope that through sharing my own stories, that it can inspire others, because you know what, genuinely, there is a better way. You don't have to suffer. You just, not any longer than you want to anyway. All right, so now we're getting into what it says. So this is just a few pages, and then we can have some discussion. And then I have like a lovely little brief guided little meditation I'd like to walk us through. Okay, so what it says: nothing real can be threatened. Your true identity as spirit cannot be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. This world, this dream of fear, does not exist. Herein lies the peace of God. This is how A Course in Miracles begins. It makes a fundamental distinction between the real and the unreal, between knowledge and perception. So knowledge is truth under one law, the law of love or God. Truth is unalterable, eternal, and unambiguous. It can be unrecognized, but it cannot be changed, which simply means you might not see it, but it's there and it does not change. It applies to everything that God created, and only what God created is real. Knowledge is beyond learning because it is beyond time and process. Knowledge is inherently what you are as your true identity. You don't have to learn it, you have to remember it. There's a difference, right? So one of the things I want to highlight is that throughout the course is it uses words like recognize, remember, realize, because this is what you already know. You are knowledge. You are one in your source. You just forgot. And so we're remembering, we're waking up, we're realizing. Okay? It is beyond learning because it is beyond time and process. It has no opposite. So knowledge has no opposite, no beginning and no end. It merely is. And so here I just want to highlight that knowledge has no opposite, no beginning and no end. It merely is. Right? So just this experience of the ego identity is not your reality, and we can wake up to the truth. So it's okay if it disappears if we start to heal from it, because the world of perception, on the other hand, so the world of perception is this world that we're in, that we're appearing to experience. And that's how I like to put it. This world's not your reality, but it is something you're experiencing. So there's a difference there, right? I think this is happening. I'm experiencing it. Okay, but it's not the truth, and that's okay. All right. And in this ego world, I'm perceiving everything. And another word for perception is interpretation. I'm interpreting it. All of us could look at the same thing, like let's say a car accident or something. And each of us would have our own different perception of what happened or where our concern would lie. We would all perceive it differently. We would all interpret it differently, right? So this is just, I just kind of want to bring a bit of clarity to the term perception. This is a world of interpretation. And we're all interpreting it through our own ego content. The world of perception, on the other hand, is the world of time, of change, of beginnings and endings. It is based on interpretation, not on facts. It is the world of birth and death, founded on the belief in scarcity, loss, separation, and death. It is learned rather than given, selective in its perceptual emphases, unstable in its functioning, and inaccurate in its interpretations. And the unstable in its functioning, I think if we look at this world, it is highly unstable, right? Like there's not much you can really rely on to stay consistent. Right? Except death and taxes, ha ha ha, right? But you know, it's that's not where we're asked to invest our belief, right? Because this world is so shaky and unstable, and that's where the teaching of, you know, building your house upon the rock instead of the sand, because the sand it changes, it shifts and changes, and that's the ego world. So we're asked to build our house upon the rock, which is the steadiness of Source's love. Okay. From knowledge, God, and perception, ego, respectively, two distinct thought systems arise, which are opposite in every respect. In the realm of knowledge, no thoughts exist apart from God, because God and its creation share one will, which is to extend love. The world of perception, what we're experiencing here, however, is made by the belief in opposites and separate wills, in perpetual conflict with each other and with God, right? I remember when my nephew, Jude, years ago was diagnosed with leukemia, and my brother, who claimed to be an atheist at the time, FYI, he told my mom that he cursed God for what apparently was happening with Jude. And my mom was just like, first of all, I thought you didn't believe in God. But second of all, how quickly in my brother's angst he was to just blame something and blame God, even though it had nothing to do with God. Right? So it's just an excellent example of just how quickly we can essentially project the conflict in our own minds onto our source who loves us, right? So it's an ego trap, right? Thankfully, my mom lovingly helped my brother out of that. He was able to get to a better place. And Jude is fine. All right. The world of perception, however, is made by the belief in opposite and separate wills in perpetual conflict with each other and with God. What perception sees and hears appears to be real. So what I'm experiencing here, it appears to be real. I see it, I hear it, I touch it, right? Because it permits into awareness only what conforms to the wishes of the perceiver. So here, I don't think everyone really realizes, but you're really being put in a power position here. You're the wishes of the perceiver. You are perceiving it, you know? And so what you're feeling and touching and experiencing is an effect of your perception, right? So you're kind of being, it's kind of being realized how powerful you are, you know? So anyways, it's just important for us to recognize that. This leads to a world of illusions, a world which needs constant defense precisely because it is not real. Right? So this world that is made up by our ego, and we're going to be getting into how that all happened, appeared to happen. But essentially, it requires a lot of maintenance for us to maintain our egos and the ego thought system. It requires a ton of defense. And so can you recognize that how exhausted we must be at the end of the day because we're essentially just trying to maintain our resistance to God. Right? That's exhausting. And we're even taught in the course that that's why we're tired at the end of the day, is because we are resisting and maintaining the ego's thought system. And this is a powerful section that I always love to highlight in my classes. When you have been caught in the world of perception, in this world, you are caught in a dream. You cannot escape without help because everything your senses show merely witnesses to the reality of the dream. Okay, that's a very powerful statement. Here, I think it's real. I think everything is real. So we need something from outside the ego's thought system to help us wake up, right? Which makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we are now looking beyond the ego's thought system for help so we can wake up because everything that we're looking at is telling us this is real, right? God has provided the answer, the only way out, the true helper. It is the function of his voice, the Holy Spirit, to mediate between the two worlds. So we have the ego's world, this experience here, and then we have the oneness of God, our reality. And between that is the liaison, the Holy Spirit, your higher self, your internal teacher. So we are taught, and it'll come up, you know, in one of our upcoming meetings, but that the Holy Spirit's function is to correctly interpret this world for you. That it will go, that's ego, that's false. What is of God is true. And so in so doing, your mind is healed of what is false and you start to remember what is true, bit by bit, bit by bit. But that is the Holy Spirit's role. Okay. He can do this, the Holy Spirit can do this because while on the one hand, it knows the truth, on the other hand, it also recognizes our illusions, but without believing in them. So your higher self is like, I see that. I see that. I don't believe it, but you do. So I can help you out. Okay. It is the Holy Spirit's goal to help us escape from the dream world by teaching us how to reverse our thinking and unlearn our mistakes. So, you know, it was shared earlier that this is a thought reversal, A Course in Miracles. Right now, we think a certain way, and A Course in Miracles is going to bring about an entire thought reversal that changes how we perceive this world, which is good because then it turns into a classroom where we ultimately learn, heal, and remember who we truly are. However, the Course has its own definition of what forgiveness really is, just as it defines the world in its own way. The world we see merely reflects our own internal frame of reference, the dominant ideas, wishes, and emotions in our minds. Projection makes perception. We look inside first, decide the kind of world we want to see, and then project that world outside, making it the truth as we see it. So there again, we're being put in that power position. What you're seeing is projected from your own mind, and now you're perceiving it that way, right? We make it true by our interpretations of what we are seeing. If we are using perception, our own ego-based perceptions, to justify our own mistakes, our anger, our impulses to attack, our lack of love, in whatever form it may take, we will see a world of evil, destruction, malice, envy, and despair. And so what I'd like to point out here, our anger, our impulses to attack, our lack of love in whatever form it takes. So what we're being taught there is that anger, impulses to attack are examples of lack of love, right? It has many other forms, but those are two examples, okay? All of this, the destruction, the evil, the malice, the envy, and despair, all of this we must learn to forgive, not because we are being good and charitable, but because what we are seeing is not true. It's not your reality. So you can let it go in peace. That takes time sometimes because some of our lessons have a lot of emotional fuel behind them, right? But that's what this world is for us to experience. And you go, you know what? I'm kind of done with that. I'm kind of done with how I'm seeing that. It's time for something new here. And if you're attracted to the course, then you're ready. All right, we have distorted the world by our twisted defenses and are therefore seeing what is not there. As we learn to recognize our perceptual errors, we also learn to look past them. So we're looking beyond the conflict and the chaos, recognizing what it is. It's a massive expression of fear, of lack of love. And now we want to move beyond that perception of that. I have to see something differently here because I'm suffering, right? So we learn to look past them or forgive. At the same time, we are forgiving ourselves, looking past our distorted self-concepts to the self, capital S, that God created in us and as us. So we're being asked to go, you know what, this ego identity you made up, like Fiona and all her problems and her issues and her pettiness and all that stuff, that's just a story. That's just a story about a character in a dream, right? It's not the truth. It's not the truth of Fiona. It's not the truth of any of you, right? It's a character in a dream having a story. And we're being asked to move beyond that to our true identity, the true self that our source created, which is good because at some point you're like, yeah, right? There's times in the course where Jesus is like, this littleness that you're investing in, like, is that really what you want? Because you're so much more. Okay. Sin is defined as lack of love. Since love is all there is, sin in the sight of the Holy Spirit is a mistake to be corrected rather than an evil to be punished. So when we look at the traditional idea of sin, what does that do? So I see that person as sinful. They robbed a bank, right? Okay, well then they need to be punished. And all that does in your mind is keep the idea of guilt. That person is guilty. And now they need to be punished because they're so bad, which keeps guilt alive in your mind. And now I'm feeling fearful. I'm feeling fearful because fear is naturally a result of the belief in guilt, because now I fear I'm going to be punished. Now I believe in punishment. What about all the things that I apparently did? I'm going to be punished too, right? So it's this massive cycle of guilt and fear when we believe in sin and punishment. Now, I'm personally at a realistic level, I'm a big believer in rehabilitation, mental rehabilitation, so, if someone has to go and take some space in an appropriate area, I hope for them that they get the rehabilitation that they need, right? So, authors like Eckhart Tolle, and even A Course in Miracles, there's the prison program. People who are in that environment who get the opportunity to read and learn and uncover their pain bodies of why they did what they did. That's beautiful, right? So, I just don't want people to get confused and be like, oh, just let everyone, just do what they want. No, it's about rehabilitation and recognizing that people did not know what they did, and now they have an opportunity to learn and love. Anyway, so just wanted to highlight that. But when we then transform sin to being a mistake, well, mistakes can be corrected. So remember, miracles are natural. Healing is natural. And the reason they're natural is because mistakes can be corrected, which means you're not stuck here. All the things that you feel guilty about, those sins you think you may have made, the punishment you think you deserve, you can transform that and go, you know what? That was a mistake. It was a mistake and it can be corrected. And it is because of that that we will ultimately come to remember who we truly are. It's our way out to recognize this very powerful statement. Mistakes to be corrected, right? So we want to give ourselves that opportunity to go, that was a mistake. I came from a place of lack of love, but now I recognize I can welcome love. I can heal, right? And we can do the same for others mentally, right? Offer them the same. So that's just a very powerful statement. Our sense of inadequacy, weakness, and incompletion comes from the strong investment in the scarcity principle that governs the whole world of illusions. This ego-based world is very much about there's not enough, this scarcity, right? And scarcity leads to fear. From that point of view, we seek in others what we feel is wanting in ourselves. We quote, love, unquote, another in order to get something ourselves. That, in fact, is what passes for love in the dream world. There can be no greater mistake than that, for love is incapable of asking for anything. So later in the text, it will cover special relationships, that there are special love and special hate relationships. Special love is where we have a reliance on someone, right? We're highly dependent on them behaving a certain way, doing certain things in order for us to love them. And the same for us. If I do this, then they'll love me, right? It's scarcity at work. And then special hate. Oh, there's my hate reserved for that specific person. Just can't stand them, blah, 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 right? You're making them special in a way because they get all your focus and all your attention, right? Living rent-free in your head. So this is just what is being highlighted here, just the world's special love and special hate relationships. Okay. Our minds can really join, and whom God has joined, no man can put asunder. It is, however, only at the level of Christ's mind that true union is possible. So we're not going to get that with the ego mind. Okay. The ego mind just wants to perpetuate conflict and chaos simply because that's all it knows. That's all it knows, right? And so true union is going to come from the Christ mind, beyond the ego mind. Okay. It is, however, only at the level of Christ's mind that true union is possible and has, in fact, never been lost. The little I, the ego identity, seeks to enhance itself by external approval, external possessions, and external love. And isn't that just true? Pay attention to me, give me a gold star, give me an A, right? The self, the true identity that God created, needs nothing. It is forever complete, safe, loved, and loving. It seeks rather to share than to get, to extend rather than project. So in the Course, we are taught that love extends. It can never be lost. Love extends into eternity, okay? Whereas fear projects. So we already know what that's like. I'm uncomfortable. Maybe someone cuts me off in traffic. I feel fearful, and boom, I project onto that person. You're the reason why I'm upset, blah, blah, blah. That's just a very simple example of projection. But love extends into eternity. Love is never lost. Your true identity has no needs and wants to join with others out of their mutual awareness of abundance. your true identity. I see the truth in you, and I want to connect with the truth in you. Beyond that ego identity, beyond your stories, there's a truth, the spark of truth in you, and I want to connect with that. And it's in everyone. The special relationships of the world are destructive, selfish, and childishly egocentric. Yet if given to the Holy Spirit, these relationships can become the holiest things on earth, the miracles that point the way to the return to heaven. The world uses its special relationships as a final weapon of exclusion and a demonstration of separateness. The Holy Spirit transforms them into perfect lessons in forgiveness and in awakening from the dream. Each one is an opportunity to let perceptions be healed and errors corrected. So here, our relationships are being completely transformed into opportunities for forgiveness and healing, right? And so, like, as an example, what I went through with my mom, there was a lot of misperception there and a lot of projection and a lot of insistence that you behave this way, right? That just was tired out. It just completely, the dynamic tired out. And it was time for something new to come in, right? So in the space where I invited the Holy Spirit in and was vigilant for the truth, I gave her the space to get where she needed to be. And we were able to come together when the time was right, which just happened to be 2 weeks ago, which I'm very grateful for. But what I like to highlight is it's not the person that you're necessarily trying to take space from. It's the dynamic. This dynamic is ego-based and unhealthy. And we're both stressed out, right? That can get very tiresome. And I think it's very much what you want to get space from. And whether that person changes at this level is not important. What is important that you get to a place where you recognize the truth in them. That you get to the point where you go, I recognize that you're calling out for love. And I'm done attacking you. And I'm done feeling attacked. And now it's just time as I start to calm down and forgive and feel better that the truth can be highlighted. And you just start to experience them more as the truth. Right? You start to feel better and less attacked and less reactionary. Anyway, I could do a whole thing on it for hours, but I just wanted to highlight it because it's a very real and recent example of how our relationships can be completely transformed from special to holy. Each one is another chance to forgive oneself by forgiving the other. And each one becomes still another invitation to the Holy Spirit and to the remembrance of God. So it is through our forgiveness of our ego-based misperceptions that we will remember our source. I got to let that go. I got to let that ego dynamic go for the truth to come forward. Perception, how I interpret, is a function of the body and therefore represents a limit on awareness. Perception sees through the body's eyes and hears through the body's ears. It evokes the limited responses which the body makes. The body appears to be largely self-motivated and independent, yet it actually responds only to the intentions of the mind. If the mind wants to use the body for attack in any form, it becomes prey to sickness, age, and decay. If the mind accepts the Holy Spirit's purpose for the body instead, the body becomes a useful way of communicating with others. Invulnerable as long as it is needed, and to be gently laid by when its use is over. So we're being taught here that the body can be transformed into something useful as opposed to something to which I use for attack, right? And maintaining the ego. Now I'm letting it be a communication tool for the Holy Spirit to move through. All right. Of itself, the body is neutral, as is everything in the world of perception. So all this is neutral, like the couch behind me, the chair, even my dog. It's all neutral. Where it seems to get life is my perception of it. I animate it with my perception, essentially, right? Okay. Whether it is used, whether body is used for the goals of the ego or the Holy Spirit depends entirely on what the mind wants, right? You will note how much emphasis there is on the mind in A Course in Miracles, because it is in your mind that you choose either for the ego or for the Holy Spirit, right? The opposite of seeing through the body's eyes is the vision of Christ, which reflects strength rather than weakness, unity rather than separation, and love rather than fear. The opposite of hearing through the body's ears is communication through the voice for God, the Holy Spirit, which abides in each of us. So the Holy Spirit communicates to you because it is a fundamental part of you. How does it do that? Through your mind, mainly through ideas. Like, that's an awesome idea. That's an inspired idea. It can also be like, well, here's a great example. Gilda's like, Fiona, I would love it if you held an ACIM chat, inspired idea. And I was like, yeah, what great idea. She spoke to me. The Holy Spirit spoke through her, and the Holy Spirit in me is like, great idea, Gilda. So here we are today. Yay, thank you. But that's, these are the ways. And the Holy Spirit can also speak to you through inspiration. So the Holy Spirit can also speak to you through dreams, right? Your sleeping dreams, which is really cool as well. So there's lots of ways, but the Holy Spirit will speak to you very clearly through your mind. All right. The opposite of hearing through the body's ears is communication through the voice for God, the Holy Spirit, which abides in each of us. His voice seems distant. So the Holy Spirit's voice seems distant and difficult to hear only because the ego, which speaks for the littleness, separated self, actually seems to be much louder, right? So the ego seems to be very loud. There's that snap judgment. There's that hair trigger reaction, right? That's the ego. But the Holy Spirit's still there, loud and true. And so this is actually reversed. The Holy Spirit speaks with unmistakable clarity and overwhelming appeal. No one who does not choose to identify with the body could possibly be deaf to his messages of release and hope, nor could he fail to accept joyously the vision of Christ in glad exchange for his miserable picture of himself. So I'm kind of done with this picture of myself, and I actually said to my husband, not too long ago when I was coming out of the PTSD, where I said, I'm just done being like this tragic figure. I'm just done with it. It's like I'm in some sort of Shakespearean play and I'm this tragic thing. I'm done with it. Right? It's time for something new to come forward, my true self. All right. Christ's vision is the Holy Spirit's gift, God's alternative to the illusion of separation and to the belief in the reality of sin, guilt, and death. It is the one correction for all errors of perception, the reconciliation of the seeming opposites on which this world is based. And so what that's just highlighting is that the opposite to the guilt and the fear is your innocence, your Christ self, your oneness in God. And that your innocence corrects all your ego misperceptions, because all your ego misperceptions do is reinforce that you are something small, guilty, and deserve to be punished. And your acknowledgement of your innocence undoes all of that. Its kindly light shows all things from another point of view, reflecting the thought system that arises from knowledge and making return to God not only possible, but ding, 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 inevitable. It is inevitable that you will return to the oneness of source. Inevitable. Isn't that beautiful? Of all the times where maybe you felt stuck, right? You're not stuck. It's inevitable. You're going home. What was regarded as injustices done to one by someone else now becomes a call for help and for union. So there's that transformation I was talking about, like in the relationship as an example with my mom, where there was attack, but it turned into, I see that was actually a call for love. So instead of going, oh, poor ego Fiona, I was like, you know what? That's a call for love. And I'm feeling strong enough now that I can see it that way. Sin, sickness, and attack are seen as misperceptions calling for remedy through gentleness and love. Defenses are laid down because where there is no attack, there is no need for them. Our brothers' needs become our own because they are taking the journey with us as we go to God. Without us, they would lose their way. Without them, we could never find our own. Everyone is a mirror, okay, of the ego content or the content of your mind. Okay. Forgiveness is unknown in heaven, where the need for it would be inconceivable. In the realm of God, we don't need forgiveness. Everything is all hunky-dory. But in this world where we think there's something other than God, we need forgiveness. However, in this world, forgiveness is a necessary correction for all the mistakes that we have made. To offer forgiveness is the only way for us to have it, for it reflects the law of heaven that giving and receiving are the same. Heaven is the natural state of all the children of God as he created them. Such is their reality forever. It has not changed because it has been forgotten. So again, there's that remembrance that just because I forgot doesn't mean that my reality has changed. Forgiveness is the means by which we will remember. Through forgiveness, the thinking of the world is reversed. The forgiven world becomes the gate of heaven, because by its mercy we can at last forgive ourselves. Holding no one prisoner to guilt, we become free, right? You don't need to be punished. It was a mistake that can be corrected. Acknowledging Christ in all our brothers, acknowledging their true identity, we recognize his presence in ourselves. Forgetting all our misperceptions and with nothing from the past to hold us back, none of those nagging kind of ego kind of thoughts, right? Those misperceptions or that thing that you did 12 years ago or whatever, all that starts to go. And as the past is no longer holding us back, we can remember God because your mind is clear of that ego perception. And now you can remember. Now there's room in your mind for the remembrance of Source. Beyond this, learning cannot go. When we are ready, God itself will take the final step in our return to it. Okay, so what is being shared here is a lot, but it covers a ton: relationships, the body, perception, right? But what is standing out is forgiveness. This is what A Course in Miracles is teaching us. How the ego functions, what it's up to, how you can start to recognize it, and then how to bring about your right mind and introducing the Holy Spirit and true forgiveness. And this is how you come to remember who you truly are. It is a life's work, right? But do not be deterred by it, right? Because you're either going further into the ego or you're waking up. And sometimes you will go into ego mode, and that's totally fine. But when you recognize that there's a better way, that you want the better way, that you're done, then you can go, oh, that thing, I need to forgive it. That thing, I can start to let it go, right? Because it's amazing how much we are fueling our own suffering. Any thoughts or questions? I know it's because it's a lot of information.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
In the very beginning, it said its only purpose is to provide a way in which some people will be able to find their own internal teacher. I thought that was interesting that it said some people.
Yeah. Well, I think because it's acknowledging that right now there's only a certain amount of people that this is going to jive with, right?
Okay.
And then also that it's the path for a certain amount of people in the world because it's just one form of the curriculum. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 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 I think it's like no pressure. If you're there, you're there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's fun to remember also that, this is something that will come later as we get into the text, but that we all wake up, it's written. Yeah.
I guess I have a question. I pretty much suffered PTSD with my mother, but she has passed.
Yeah.
So, and also, some relationships with my son, who has also passed, regretfully. And I'm wondering if this helps resolve things with people that you can't, literally talk to these things.
Absolutely, because one of the things that's going to be highlighted as we get into the course is what I already shared, is that this is about the mind. And what we're taught is that this bodily experience is just that, it's an experience, but that the mind of your mother and your son are still accessible to you, even though you appear to be in a body. Yeah, absolutely. So it's your work of healing your mind and true forgiveness and healing those memories will still will produce a loving effect for them as well, because we're taught in the course that the mind is perfectly joined and we're all connected at the level of the mind. It's just in this experience where the bodies seem to be separate. So you can absolutely have that connection. It's still there. And any forgiveness work will lovingly benefit all of you. Yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. And you know, like the PTSD that I went to was caregivers PTSD, but a lot of familial trauma was brought up on my maternal side. And at that point, my mom's parents had passed, but I had a ton of nightmares about them and their home. And through my true forgiveness work, as my dreams progressed and I started to heal, those dreams improved. And I actually got what I believe were 2 visitations from my grandma in my dreams. Absolutely. So it's not done, right? Like the journey continues, even though they appear to be past. And, you know, sometimes it might just be easier if the person's passed on, that you can go, you know what, now it's safer to look at that memory and maybe I feel more ready to forgive it.
I like that idea of safer, particularly with my mother, because she could be vicious. Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so you're no longer feeling challenged by that personality in your daily life. So you're like, I can do a lot of work here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm enthralled.
Oh, good. Mind is what needs to be healed. These bodies are just, you know, this is just like this puppet, right? Animated by perception. Yeah. So it's, and you know, it's cool in the course, at no point anywhere does it say that you are a body. It points out that you are formless mind and spirit working together as one. There's just a tiny part of our minds having this ego experience. And that's what needs to heal.
And the Holy Spirit works in all directions of time and space.
Yes, which is cool, because next Sunday we're going to get into the principles of miracles, where that is highlighted. What the Holy Spirit does works all dimensions. We, like, again, that's what I was saying. We only got this limited scope. Here I am. I think I'm just in this one dimension, but there's other parts of my mind having all sorts of experiences, and the Holy Spirit just gets right in there. Right. So, and I think I shared at some point, because it's probably been 2 years since it happened, but I had this dream 2 years ago, and it was like a daydream, like, sorry, I was having a nap during the day. So it was quite vivid. And this gentleman came into my room, and he looked very wise, very old, white beard and everything. And he seemed to be from the future, although he did seem to be some sort of, kind of not a religious figure, but some sort of spiritual figure. And he put over my eye something like a lens, and then he put something in my ear, and it vibrated and was shooting light in my eye. And it became overwhelming, but it happened for about 2 minutes. And then when it was done, when I kind of reached my threshold, but I was like, Fiona, just stick with it. And then it was done. He took it off and he just looked at me with his beautiful, pristine blue eyes. And he said, healed. I have no idea what healed.
Oh, wow.
I don't know what he was referring to. I don't know who he was, but I thought this could be a good example of dimensional.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I say.
And it's important also the fact that maybe we don't know what is being healed.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there is something that's a layer.
Yeah. Yeah. So something somewhere healed. And I was like, just keep going with your true forgiveness work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another idea could be incurable, when the world says incurable.
Yeah.
There is nothing that cannot be forgiven.
Absolutely. Everything can be forgiven, and what can be healed, whatever the journey is, you know, it's endless. Like Deborah, you don't know this story because we've just met, but when I healed from Meniere's disease, I didn't even know it was Meniere's disease. I just thought it was really extreme vertigo. 2 years after I healed, that I was diagnosed by a gentleman who channels, the gentleman's name is Lee Carroll, but he channels a spiritual being called Cryon. And so he's a Hay House author. Lee Carroll is a Hay House author, and he has like 14 books where he channels Cryon. And I met Lee Carroll at an event, and I told him my cool healing story. And briefly, he went into a trance, and then he looked back at me, and he said it was Meniere's disease. And when I looked, and when I looked up Meniere's disease, it checked all the boxes. It's everything that I had experienced. And so I was diagnosed by a spiritual being.
I love that.
Yeah. So it's just an example of, I'm like, you can't make this stuff up. It's just an example that there's this whole other world. Yeah. And we're so supported by spirit. And so there's tons of cool experiences. You know, that's where I say, get excited, because healing can be fun.
I'm ready.
Can be fun. That's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and why wouldn't it be? You're releasing the conflict. So maybe not always it's felt that way, but yeah, it's like it's time to let go safely. Yeah.
New beginnings.
Yes, follow that willingness.
There, believe me.
Awesome.
I've heard about this when I was living in California, like 20 years ago. The church I was going to, Agape, with Michael Beckwith. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
I used to go to his church when I lived in Los Angeles, and that was quite a fabulous experience. And they did talk about A Course in Miracles there, but I was just enjoying the church so much. But I'm thinking, oh, if I would have done some of this 20 years ago, but no regrets, right?
That's right. The journey is the journey.
I guess I'm ready now. I guess.
That's right. Yeah. And, you know, and sometimes our life circumstances allow for, you know what, now's the time. Things are maybe a little quieter, or, you know, you never know.
True statement. Less chaos.
Yeah. It can help. It can definitely help. Yeah. I mean, because, yeah, it's nice to be able to take in the information, let it absorb. Yeah. Okay, well, I just wanted to, it's one of my favorite kind of teachings from the course. And when I was reading the preface, I was like, this is just what stands out. This is our goal. And this one idea is what's going to carry you through everything that you do with the course. And I can't stress how important the idea is. And the lesson that it's taken from, the course lesson that it's taken from, forgive me, I don't have the lesson number fresh in my mind right now, but in that lesson, it says, if you remember this one thing, you can save yourself sometimes thousands of years of ego content. So the power in this statement. So when everyone's ready, you can leave your eyes open or just close. It's just a kind of a brief reflection, but I wanted to get the application flowing. All right, nice centering breath in. And we want to remember the words. You can say them to yourself or just hear my voice. I am spirit, whole and innocent. All is forgiven and released. This is the goal we are working towards, is the remembrance of our true identity. Beneath all of your challenges, every ego reaction, this is the truth that will carry you out of it. You are innocent, loving, lovable, and you are deeply loved. I am spirit, whole and innocent. All is forgiven and released. You can envision this idea as a golden stream which you are tethered to oneness. And it is always with you as you experience yourself as something else. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Helpful?
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
good. You know, it's, you know, if you like wake up in the middle of the night and you have fear thoughts that are kind of preventing you from going to sleep or something, that's a good one to just kind of deepen your breathing and say that to yourself and lull yourself back to sleep. Yeah, yeah. And it's good any other time, of course, but I find it effective during such occasions. Just warms my heart to connect with everyone. I was so excited for today, and I'm so excited for next Sunday.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, love.